Discussion keeps the world turning.
This is Roundtable.
You're listening to Roundtable. I'm Niu Honglin, joined by Steve and Yushan. And it's time for the full circle. This is the part where we rewind the week and pull out 3 stories that on the surface should never be in the same room together. They have different topics, different worlds, zero obvious connection, and yet somehow there is one. Can't wait to reveal that thread that links all of them together. So now, this week's Full Circle.
3 stories, 1 connection. This is the Full Circle.
Welcome to the Full Circle. Let's see if we can find that thread that links up all the random stories that we pick today.
Yeah, our first beat on that thread is from Monday, where we talked about China's first meeting of the spring.
This first meeting of the spring is the high-level conference that usually each province holds on the very first working day after the Spring Festival holiday. And it's not just a routine meeting because it's a big agenda-setting moment.
Yeah, indeed. It isn't just a symbolic meeting like all the other meetings. It's directional. Because on the first working day of the year
Harsh
of the
criticism
horse...
of all the other meetings.
I'm sorry, but yeah, I mean, meetings can mean a lot of things, but these meetings, they actually happen on the first working day of the year of the horse, and that various provinces across the country, they just gather together and get this high-profile first meeting of the spring. So these are agenda-setting moments where provincial leaders, they outline strategic industries locally to double down on, or what kind of tech innovation or advanced manufacturing or private capitals and risk control they're getting at, which all signal where development is headed for their province. So this is
It's both practical and ceremonial.
Yeah,
almost.
indeed. So it's a decision-making point that really indicates where future goes for local province.
That one's from Monday. What else did you choose?
The second one is from Tuesday. So this one is really interesting. It's about the silver-haired students going global.
Yeah, since 2025, last year, there have been a lot of, in particular, agencies have been starting to exploring these silver-haired learners.
So yeah, that's around in 2025, isn't it? And that's when study abroad agencies are really focusing on the new demographic, which are the financially stable retirees with a hunger for lifelong learning. So now these agencies are rolling out programs such as the Retirement Study Abroad Club, which attracts over 50,000 members and help over 500 silver-haired learners to enroll in universities worldwide to learn about fashion, about painting, and I don't know, jewelry design we mentioned, right?
You know, sometimes people criticize young people for saying that, I want to enter my silver hair age sooner.
So that I can rest.
Yeah, but when they're saying that, to start with, they're self-mocking a little bit. They're making fun of it, and they're trying to release their pressure. It does not mean they want to get older faster. But on the other hand, if you take a look at the life of those silver hair generation, they're really having fun.
Yeah, there
Exactly.
was a guy from the story, I forget his name, but he had grown up, with a passion for an Italian painter. I forget which painter as well. And throughout the course of his career, he never had the opportunity, of course, to pursue painting or anything like that. So after he retired, he went to Italy to learn how to paint in the same style as his favorite historic Italian painter. And that's kind of an amazing thing if you can pull that off.
Yes, and that's first meeting of the spring and silver-haired students going global. What would be the third story?
The third story is from Wednesday, where we talked about time-honored brands going viral. More than 90% of Beijing's traditional brands have gone online. They're setting up shops on major e-commerce platforms like JD.com, Taobao, and Tmall, and also on social media platforms like Douyin. So yeah, that's not only happening in Beijing, that's across different major cities in China, Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, Hangzhou, you name it, where China's time-honored brands are stepping out of brick-and-mortar store fronts and going onto live stream studios and selling their products online, and in the meantime, bringing people to their brand culture in multiple ways, such as building a museum. And their sales revenue are also growing, and that this is not just about some old brands opening a online shop, but rather how these century-old names are learning to thrive, if not revitalize, in the digital age. I personally am very interested in this because growing up, my family tend to always buying similar brands, and as I grow up and learn about the history behind it and why people love them, I tend to learn more about why it's important for these brands to still find ways to thrive and grow, even in modern times where a lot of people shop online.
Yeah.
It really matters for them and the customers.
How to stay relevant and cool when your company is old.
3 very fun stories. But what would be the full circle?
Here comes the common thread. All 3 stories are about redefining the timeline. So this is about refusing to accept that beginnings and endings happen only once and bear only one meaning. So on the first meeting of the spring, a new year used to mean a reset. But here, it's more than just that. These provincial gatherings compress time. They connect a single day back to 5-year plans and 5-year plans to decades-long ambitions, if not longer. So the message isn't just about work starts now. It's about directions, how to define them, and that matters more than just the speed. The first meeting reframes January not as, or rather February in terms of Spring Festival, is not as recovery from celebration, but as the opening chapter for a longer arc. And then on retirement study abroad, we tend to believe retirement was supposed to be a wrap-up time. That's
the last chapter.
Yeah, that's what we often think, isn't it? But we tend to believe work hard for 40 years, then rest. But now we see silver-haired learners are pushing back on that linear script. They're extending the timeline of growth beyond the traditional cutoff point. Education is no longer front-loaded into young people or youth. Curiosity isn't just confined to the first third, if not half of your life. If the old model said learn, work, retire, then now we see how these silver-haired learners redefining that to learn, work, and learn again. So now we see retirement isn't shrinking, it's expanding. And then on time-honored brands, century-old brands, they might seem like it's belonging to the past or it's just good old stuff. But these businesses are collapsing historical distance and instead building their name on live streams and online platforms, newer platforms. And sometimes you can see them founded back in the Qing dynasty from 100, 200 years ago, but they're really proving that longevity isn't about freezing tradition in time. It's about updating the interface without deleting the memory. So that's really something that I found interesting among, as I go through the 3 stories.
This is like 3 stories with 3 different clocks.
Exactly.
And you can be the decider of your own clock in your own matter, no matter if you're starting a meeting and deciding how much effect the meeting can put on the development of your province. No matter, and you can decide on whether or not your clock is reset on a certain age. You can also decide whether or not you can start a new shop, even if it has a century-old brand.
Yeah.
Some of our clocks are defined, though, and some are imposed definitions and some are self-imposed definitions, I think. Because if you look at the 5-year plans or the 2 sessions meetings or what have you, anything that's very structured and organized, it is known months, if not years in advance when those meetings are going to take place, right? We know when the next 5-year meetings are going to take place. 4 years from now. But when it comes to us, it's self-imposed, I think. Or maybe it's just that society imposes it on us, which in my opinion is still somewhat self-imposed. What I mean is it's the same thing in the West, right? You go to school, you work, you get married, have your family or whatever, and then you retire, and then you play golf or what have you. But that what have you is almost the self-imposed definition, because that's it. Now you're just kind of like on the path to death, where things like curiosity or ambition or striving for new things, society doesn't, I was going to say doesn't want us to do that, but I don't think that's it. It's just, it's not a priority in society, right?
It's not that expected.
Yeah.
Yeah, we meet expectations from different parties at each phase of our lives.
Exactly, and that's why I said self-imposed by society is because expectations are there, and also when there's a lack of expectation, that's still kind of an expectation. So when you do something outside of that, people think, oh, that's cute, or oh, that's weird. Like if you went to a club and the DJ was 82 years old, you'd think, well, that's weird.
Well, I'll say, well, respect.
That
right?
too.
Because we don't expect to see that at that time. Or we might think, oh, that's cute. So the thing that I get too is it's about clocks, yeah, but it's also about, redefining expectations a little bit too, I think.
Yes, and Yushan said it's about having a different clock or having a different timeline, but I don't think it's exactly about starting over in certain sense. I do not think we can ever start over because of our past experience. We are building something on our past experience. The reason that the century-old brand can get the popularity is, of course, because they are finding out new stories that they can tell in today's social media or online market that young people would be able to appreciate. But yes, at the same time, they're also having and using their legacy that's century old. And for the silver hair generation, of course, being curious about certain things and being able to go to Italy to learn about fashion is super cool. But it's not that they didn't have the dream when they're young. It's just because they need the time, they need the financial support, and they need a little bit of, I've seen everything. Now I really do want to pursue my dream. So on today's internet, we see sometimes people say, I didn't have a good enough childhood because of my parents' way of raising me. It's not that they don't love me. It's just that they
Expectations.
Yes. So what I want to do is to raise myself again by doing the things I didn't get to do. But I don't think that's the correct definition. I do not think they are raising themselves again. It's more of that they know better and they are doing something to make themselves a bit more complete, to have a harder inside or a stronger heart, and to complement for those things they didn't get as a kid. And that is also okay. So never think of it as I am restarting, I am throwing away what I have in the past. No, you are building on it.
Yeah, and who gets to decide what we do at a certain time to be correct or not? It's perhaps based on all the past experience and those that we know we've accumulated, that we get to enjoy things better, what we didn't get to experience when we were younger. So here is my question to all of our listeners out there. Are you living on a fixed timeline or are you rewriting it? And to answer that, here is my final thought. Spring Festival, we know that. It comes back every year. But it's never the same spring every year. And on the very first working day, when provinces convene their first meetings, they're not just reopening offices, they're quietly redrawing the map for the years ahead. And when it comes to individual life planning, we're often obsessed with the idea that life runs on rails. School by 22 years old, career by 30, success by 40, stability by 60. After that, what? Quiet. But what if time isn't a staircase? It's a circle. A retiree sits in a classroom in London, but she isn't starting over. She is continuing. A 100-year-old shop opens a Douyin account. It's not abandoning history, it's extending it. Maybe growth isn't about racing forward. Maybe it's about knowing when to begin again.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of, I think it's this. So I could disagree with both of you, but it wouldn't matter because it's a matter of perspective. It's what it means to you, right? Actually, I do disagree with Niu Honglin in a certain sense. I don't think everything is a continuation on our timeline. I think you can start again. And I think number two there is would be that we need to start again sometimes. Think about this very extreme example. If you went through some sort of emotional or physical abuse as a younger person or in a relationship, when you were able to escape that, then that would be starting again. I don't think that would be seen as a continuation on a timeline of who you are as a person per se. It would emotionally be needed to feel like I'm going to start again and my life starts today. My life starts now. So I think in certain contexts, it's okay to say, I'm starting again. But again, it doesn't matter whether you agree or disagree with me or I disagree with you because it's all just a matter of perspective.
Yes, and the important thing is to remember that we are the only people who can define who we are, who can define whether or not we're starting again or we're starting maybe just a new chapter, building on the previous ones. And no matter whether you're 20 or 80, you can always be the master of your life and decide on what you want to do.
Do you know why I use that grandpa DJ as the example?
There is one?
That's my dream.
DJ!
When I'm like 75 or 80 years old, I want to be a DJ, like a club DJ.
I would
an
say
address.
that is super cool. And that brings us to the end of today's roundtable. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's topics. Leave us a comment wherever you listen to your podcast or send us an email to roundtablepodcast@qq.com. I'm Niu Honglin with Steve and Yushan. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.